Discover the prophetic secrets of Daniel in an engaging animated summary. Imagine this: you're sitting in a quiet room. The kind of stillness that makes every sound feel amplified. And you find yourself scrolling through the stories of the Bible. You stumble upon the book of Daniel. A name you've heard in passing but never really stopped to think about. And then, as you read, it hits you: this isn't just a story about a man in exile or lions in a den. It's a roadmap. A prophetic masterpiece that reveals secrets about the future and the timeless truths of human nature. The question isn't whether these secrets exist, but whether you're ready to uncover them. So, let's embark on this journey together, an animated exploration of Daniel's prophecies. A story that will challenge you, inspire you, and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Let's start at the beginning. Daniel was no ordinary man. He was a young noble, taken from his homeland into captivity in Babylon, forced to serve under one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. Imagine being torn from everything familiar: your family, your culture, your faith, and placed in a world designed to strip away your identity. Yet, amidst this chaos, Daniel did something extraordinary. He chose faith over fear, conviction over compromise. You might be wondering, how does this relate to me? Well, think about the moments in your own life when you felt like an outsider. When the world around you seemed designed to test your principles. How do you respond when your values are challenged? Do you stand firm? Or do you blend in, hoping not to ruffle any feathers? Daniel's story begins with a test: refusing the royal food and wine, choosing instead to honor his dietary convictions. It's such a small thing, isn't it? But this seemingly insignificant act became the foundation for everything that followed. Isn't that how life works? It's in the small, quiet choices where the greatest battles are fought. Now, here's a challenge for you. What are the small decisions you're making today that will define who you become tomorrow? As we journey deeper, we come to one of Daniel's most famous moments, the interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Imagine the scene: a king, troubled and sleepless, demanding not only the interpretation of his dream but for his wise men to tell him what the dream was in the first place. Failure meant death. No pressure, right? And yet, Daniel, this young exile, steps forward, not with arrogance, but with humility. He doesn't claim the wisdom as his own. Instead, he points to God, the ultimate revealer of mysteries. The dream? A towering statue made of different materials: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, each representing a kingdom that would rise and fall. It's a prophecy not just about the future of nations but about the fragility of human power. Here's the profound truth: empires rise, and empires fall. Wealth, power, and prestige, none of it lasts. The only unshakable kingdom is the one built by God. So, let me ask you this: what kingdom are you building? Is it one that will endure? Or one that will crumble when the winds of life blow against it? Fast forward to the fiery furnace. Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow to the golden image, even under the threat of death. Their response to the king's ultimatum is one of the most powerful declarations of faith in history: if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. But even if he does not, we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods. Think about that for a moment. But even if he does not, how often do we approach faith with conditions? We'll trust as long as the outcome aligns with our desires. But what happens when it doesn't? These three men show us what unwavering faith looks like, not faith in the outcome, but faith in the God who holds the outcome. Here's where it gets even more profound. They're thrown into the fire. And not only are they unharmed, but a fourth figure appears in the flames, one like a son of the gods. What does this tell us? It's not just about being saved from the fire. It's about knowing that even in the fire, we're not alone. Who is walking with you through your fires? Now, as we approach the end of this first part, let's shift our focus to Daniel's visions, moments that pull back the curtain of time, revealing not just the events of his era but the unfolding of history itself. The beasts, the horns, the Ancient of Days, the Son of Man, each image rich with meaning, each a piece of a larger puzzle. And here's where we find one of the most significant takeaways: history isn't random. There's a plan, a purpose, even when it feels chaotic. Daniel's prophecies remind us that God is sovereign, even over the empires of the world. But more than that, they challenge us to see our place within this divine narrative. What role are you playing in the story of history? Are you a passive observer? Or are you stepping into your God-given purpose? As we pause here, I want to leave you with this thought: Daniel's story isn't just about prophecy or miraculous deliverance. It's about faithfulness in the midst of uncertainty, courage in the face of opposition, and hope in the promise of a kingdom that will never fade. But there's so much more to explore. In the next part, we'll dive into the practical lessons hidden within Daniel's visions and the profound truths they reveal about our lives today. Unraveling the mysteries of Daniel's visions, lessons for life today. Let's step back into the extraordinary world of Daniel, a world of visions that stretch beyond time, revealing truths that remain deeply relevant to us. These visions are not just cryptic symbols or ancient mysteries, they're a call to reflection, a lens through which we can view our own lives and the world around us. We begin with the vision of the four beasts rising from the sea. Picture it: a lion with eagle's wings, a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, a leopard with 4 wings, and a terrifying, iron-toothed beast beyond comparison. Each of these represents a kingdom, empires that wielded immense power in their time. But here's the fascinating twist: no matter how ferocious, each beast is ultimately under the authority of the Ancient of Days. Now, let's bring this closer to home. In our own lives, these beasts could symbolize forces that seem insurmountable, systems of power, challenges that feel overwhelming, or even the darker tendencies within ourselves. But what does Daniel's vision tell us? No matter how chaotic or intimidating the external forces, there's a higher power at work. Do you believe that even in the storms of your life, there's a divine hand guiding the currents? Then there's the Ancient of Days, a majestic figure seated on a flaming throne, his clothing as white as snow, his hair like pure wool. Imagine the awe, the reverence, the undeniable sense of justice. Books are opened, and judgment is rendered. This isn't just a scene of divine power, it's a reminder that every action, every choice, has weight and consequence. Think about your own life. What would it mean if the books of your actions were open today? Would they tell a story of courage and kindness, or one of missed opportunities and fear? Here's the challenge: if the Ancient of Days is keeping record, how does that knowledge shape the way you live right now? As the vision unfolds, we see one like a Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven, given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations worship him. This is a pivotal moment, pointing to the Messiah, Jesus Christ, whose kingdom will never end. It's a vision of hope, a promise of a future where justice and love reign. But here's the question: what does it mean to live as a citizen of this kingdom today? It's easy to get caught up in the here and now, in building careers, chasing success, or navigating relationships. But Daniel's vision invites us to lift our eyes, to see the bigger picture. How would your life change if you truly lived with eternity in mind? Let's move to the vision of the ram and the goat, a prophecy so precise it baffles historians. The ram, representing the Medo-Persian Empire, is powerful but ultimately defeated by the goat, symbolizing Greece and its leader, Alexander the Great. It's a story of rise and fall, of empires clashing and power shifting. Here's the lesson: nothing in this world lasts forever, not wealth, not power, not even the greatest of achievements. So where are you placing your trust? Is it in things that fade or in something eternal? And yet, within this vision, there's a glimmer of hope. The destruction of the goat's horn leads to the rise of the little horn, a figure often associated with great oppression. But even this dark force is ultimately defeated. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the world seems, evil does not have the final word. Now, let's talk about Daniel's 70 weeks, a prophecy so intricate it has been studied and debated for centuries. It's a timeline that points to the coming of the Anointed One and the fulfillment of God's promises. Imagine the precision, the layers of meaning, the anticipation of something greater than ourselves. This prophecy teaches us patience. How often do we grow weary when things don't happen on our timeline? Daniel waited years, decades, for the fulfillment of what he saw. Yet, his faith never wavered. How patient are you when it comes to the promises in your own life? Can you trust that the waiting is part of the process? As we near the end of this second part, let's return to the core of Daniel's visions: hope in the face of uncertainty, faith in the midst of chaos, and a constant call to align our lives with a higher purpose. Daniel's story is not about avoiding hardship, it's about thriving within it, trusting that even when the path isn't clear, the destination is worth the journey. So here's a question to leave you pondering: if you knew your life was part of a divine plan, how would that change the way you live each day? Living the prophetic call: how Daniel's story can transform your life. As we step into the final part of this journey, I want you to take a moment and reflect on everything we've uncovered so far. Daniel's story is not just a collection of ancient events or cryptic visions. It's a call, a prophetic invitation to live with purpose, courage, and faith in a world that often feels unpredictable. And here's where it gets deeply personal: what if Daniel's story isn't just about him but about you? Let's dive into the heart of it. One of the most awe-inspiring aspects of Daniel's life is his unwavering commitment to prayer. 3 times a day, every day, Daniel knelt before God, even when it put his life at risk. Think about that. In a world where he was surrounded by power, prestige, and temptation, he never let his connection with God falter. Now, pause for a moment. How consistent is your connection with the things that truly matter? In a culture that glorifies busyness, have you found time for stillness, reflection, or gratitude? Daniel's discipline wasn't about ritual, it was about relationship. And that relationship gave him the strength to face lions, literal and metaphorical. So, here's the challenge: what would change in your life if you prioritized that kind of connection every day? And then there's the lion's den. We all know the story, how Daniel's faithfulness led him to a pit filled with hungry lions. Yet he emerged unscathed. But let's look deeper. The real miracle isn't just that the lions didn't touch him, it's the peace Daniel carried into that den. Can you imagine that kind of calm in the face of danger? That kind of trust? The lion's den is a metaphor for the fears and challenges we all face. It's the confrontation with uncertainty. The moments when everything feels like it's falling apart. And yet, Daniel shows us that faith isn't about avoiding the lions. It's about knowing that the one who shut their mouths is with you, even in the darkest pit. So let me ask you, what are the lions in your life right now? And how are you facing them? As we turn to the grander scope of Daniel's prophecies, there's an undeniable thread running through them, the promise of restoration. Whether it's the fall of empires or the rise of a new kingdom, Daniel's visions remind us that history is moving toward a divine conclusion. But restoration isn't just about the world, it's about us. Think about your own life. Where do you need restoration? Maybe it's in a relationship that feels broken, a dream you've let go of, or a part of yourself you've neglected. Daniel's story invites us to believe that no matter how far things seem from where they should be, restoration is always possible. But here's the key: it requires trust, patience, and a willingness to step into the process. Let's bring this full circle. At the heart of Daniel's story is a profound truth: identity. From the moment he was taken into captivity, every effort was made to strip Daniel of who he was. New name, new culture, new expectations. And yet, Daniel never forgot where he came from or who he belonged to. In a world that constantly tries to define us by our achievements, failures, or the opinions of others, how do you hold on to your identity? Daniel reminds us that true identity isn't found in external labels. It's rooted in something eternal. So here's a question for you: who are you when everything else is stripped away? Finally, let's talk about legacy. Daniel's life wasn't just about surviving exile or interpreting dreams. It was about leaving a mark, a prophetic legacy that continues to inspire and challenge us thousands of years later. And that's the beauty of living a life aligned with purpose. It echoes far beyond our time on earth. So, what legacy are you building? It's not about grand gestures or fame. It's about the quiet, consistent choices that shape the lives of those around you. It's about the courage to stand firm, the humility to serve, and the faith to trust in a plan bigger than yourself. As we conclude this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought. Daniel's story isn't just a testament to what God can do in the life of one man. It's an invitation, a call to step into the fullness of your own story. To face the lions with courage. To embrace the waiting with faith. And to live with a purpose that transcends the temporary. And here's the question I want you to carry with you: what would your life look like if you truly lived with the faith, courage, and vision of Daniel? This is your story now. What happens next is up to you.